Hi, I'm Missy with Elm William Street, and we are here to help you become a more confident quilter, from the piecing to the quilting and everything in between. This month we are back with block 4 of our yearly quilt along. So block 4 is this really fun rail block that's got all of the different stripes utilizing our colors. Okay, so just a couple of tips that are going to be helpful as you're working on all of these blocks throughout the year. We want to make sure that we go over those so that you just have a reminder. So one thing, starching your fabric before you cut everything out is going to make sure that everything is just nice and crisp. So that is one thing that we do recommend is go ahead and starch your fabric. You do want to starch it before you cut your squares though, because starching it can change the size of your blocks. You want to make sure you starch it first. The other tip is go ahead and use a scant 1/4 inch seam. This allows you to have a slightly bigger block and do any trimming if you need to. So just double check that scant 1/4 inch. If you're also just kind of double checking and making sure that your 1/4 inch really is a true 1/4 inch so that when you're scant, it is a true scant. So just double check that. We do have a video on our channel that talks about checking your machine and making sure that your 1/4 inch seam is a true 1/4 inch seam. So go ahead and check that out. The other item is when you're trimming off your dog ears. So this is going to be on half square triangles, on flying geese, things like that. Make sure that you're only trimming those dog ears and you're not getting into the block itself, because if you get into the block itself, it's going to make that block smaller and then things aren't going to line up the way they need to. Now for block 4, we're going to go ahead and cut our orange pieces. So for this one, we're just going to cut strips. And I'm actually going to cut this in half first. So we're going to cut it at 7 inches. So line that up. Make sure when you're doing it that you're also lining up along this edge and this edge. That's going to keep everything nice and square. So there's my first 7 inches, and then I'm going to cut this down to 1 1/4 inch strips. So it's going to give us two 1 1/4 inch strips by 7 inches. And the reason we're cutting them down this way instead of doing one long strip at 1 1/4 inches is just because it's going to make just sewing them together and keeping things lined up nicely. It's just going to be so much easier. So again, we're going to cut this so that it's also 7 inches. We've got a little bit extra on here that we don't need. And then we're also going to grab our white strips that are cut the same. So these are also 7 by 1 1/4 inches, and we're going to sew them together in a rail. So we're going to start with our orange, and then we're going to do our white, and then our orange, and then our white. And we're just going to repeat that with both sections of strips. Okay, now that we've got our strip complete, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it in half so that we have 3 1/2 inch squares. So line that up. So we're going to line it up, cut right there at the 3 1/2, and then this second piece should then be exactly 3 1/2. We'll just do a quick double check. And yep, we're right there. I'm just going to cut off a couple of those threads while I'm here. And we're going to do that with both sections that we just sewed together. And again, the reason why we cut these in half and did them as 2 different pieces is just because when you're doing such thin strips, you can actually tend to pull and distort a little bit more the longer the strip is. So that's why we went ahead and cut those smaller. Now we're going to go ahead and just lay out our block. Just follow the diagram. And then we're just going to sew the 2 top ones together, the 2 bottom ones together, and then we'll sew the 2 strips. Okay, now that all of your block is sewn together, go ahead and repeat that same process with all of the rest of your colors. Set them aside, keep them in a place where you can store them nice and flat so that there's no wrinkles or any issues when we get to the end and are ready to sew our quilt together. And don't forget, all of the information we went over today can be found in our blog post. So click on the link below the video. It will take you to that so you can find all of the instructions. And you can also find links to the past blocks if you're trying to get caught up. And then while you're there, don't forget to check out our shop. Find your next quilting project. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see all of the things that we are working on. And happy quilting!